Begin Self-Publishing, episode number 23. ISBNs. Should you use them or not?
Interested in self-publishing but don't know where to start? Want to get your book onto Amazon? Want to hold your paperback book in your hands? Learn how on the Begin Self-Publishing podcast with your host, Tim Lewis.
To be brutally honest, I've put off talking about this subject. The reason why I've put off talking about ISBNs is because I haven't entirely made up my own mind on whether you should have them or not. For my initial eBooks, I didn't use any ISBN numbers at all. For my later print book, I have bought and purchased and used an ISBN number for the print book and for the ebook edition. There's quite a fierce debate going on in the self-published community about whether you should use ISBN numbers or not. And in this show I'll try and present to you both sides of the case so you can make your own mind up. My personal opinion is that you should definitely use them for print books, but I think the case is very weak for ebooks. I suppose an obvious question to ask in the first place is, what is an ISBN number? I believe it stands for something like International Standard Book Number, and that official book number code is used to ensure that that book can be identified, mainly for book retailers, consistently and tracked in terms of sales. So if you've ever seen a barcode on the back of a book, all that barcode is a representation of the ISBN number of the book. So those little barcode scanners when you buy a book in a bookstore, scan that barcode and convert it into an ISBN number. That then can be sent off electronically to the big distribution arms, these companies that tell some book statistics companies that you've actually purchased the book. This is an official standard that's used internationally for books to keep track of them, and also to allow for searching of books and other things on book buying systems. In many of the actual book charts you see, the sales are tracked by ISBN numbers. So if your book doesn't have an ISBN number, for example, if you self-publish the book to Amazon, Amazon has its own internal tracking numbers, and unless you give the book an ISBN number, it won't be visible to any of these external companies that are tracking book sales. So if you just have an ebook on Amazon with no ISBN number, and as far as these book tracking services are concerned, your book doesn't exist. With paper books, having an ISBN number allows you to be registered, or your publishing company name to be registered as the publishers of the book. CreateSpace will give you a free ISBN number, but it's their own ISBN, so the publisher will be known as CreateSpace. This also means that you can't use any other publishing service like Ingram Spark or print-on-demand services if you're using CreateSpace, because they will have the ISBN number for the book. There is a down point to having an ISBN number for a paperback book. This is that, certainly in the UK, and this may or may not be true in the US, there are official organisations that require a copy of your book as soon as it's published. And the way they track this is if you have an ISBN number. So, for example, in the UK, if you self-publish a paperback book, then you're supposed to provide a copy to the British Library and to 5 other various national libraries. And this means that, in effect, you've got to send 6 copies of your book to various libraries in the country as soon as it's published to record the fact that you've actually published this book. I'm not entirely sure if this is to do with having an ISBN on your book, but certainly if you have an ISBN number on your book, they will know about it and they will get in touch with you as the publisher of the book. So this is something to consider. Certainly, you have no hope of selling a paperback book in a bookstore unless you have an ISBN number, for some variety. And for legitimacy in terms of being purchased by bookshop ordering systems, you want an ISBN number. You want an ISBN number encoded into a barcode, but that's fairly simple. There are many sites that will take an ISBN number and produce a barcode for you. For ebooks, the case is less clear for having ISBN numbers. While these companies such as Nielsen do do track ebook sales. They don't do it as regularly as paperback sales. They'll do them for like monthly charts. And if you're hoping to get into something like the New York bestseller list, then you probably should buy an ISBN number for your ebook. However, just to get into an Amazon chart, just in terms of sales, you don't need an ISBN number. You just need to sell a lot of books. And these other charts, such as the New York bestsellers list, aren't entirely driven by sales. There is an element of selection in their decision as to who goes into the list. This grey selection criteria idea does insinuate that there is some element of gerrymandering that goes on with charts like the New York bestsellers list. They keep changing the rules as to what books can get in there and what can't. But I suspect if you had a CreateSpace ISBN number on your book, or you had an ebook that was only available on Amazon, then you have no chance on earth of getting into that chart. I suppose this is the basic reason for having an ISBN, is that it does give you a legitimacy equivalent to a standard or small publisher. Nobody's obviously going to be able to point out that your book is self-published if you have an ISBN number on it and you have it decently formatted and you have decent editing done on your book. It becomes almost identical to a small press book. Great disadvantage to ISBNs is that you have to pay for them in many countries in the world. In Canada they're free, but in the US and the UK you do have to pay, and they can be quite expensive. If you order them in bulk, then they're cheaper per cost, but you're still talking about hundreds of pounds if you buy like 100 ISBN numbers. This is ultimately the option I went for, so now I'm going to be using ISBN numbers for all my books. The other advantage to ISBNs is that there are some ebook stores that will only take books that have ISBNs. I suspect, and I'm not sure about this, that you can get into those bookstores via services like Smashword, which do a similar thing to CreateSpace, as in providing their own ISBN number. However, this is one of the few reasons why I think you may want to consider having ISBN numbers for your ebooks. But if I was a pure ebook publisher, I'm not sure I would invest in ISBN numbers. It gives you a vast amount of flexibility when it comes to paperbacks and hardback books to have your own set of ISBN numbers, but it is a large financial commitment. So it is very much a personal decision. If you're totally committed to self-publishing, then I think you probably should buy ISBN numbers at some point, and buy a large number so you get a discount on the actual cost per ISBN number. But they are expensive, and it can be quite a tedious process applying for them, though this has improved recently. So that's my take on ISBN numbers. If you listen to some self-publishing authorities such as Joanna Penn from the Creative Penn podcast, she doesn't use ISBN numbers at all. And that, in many ways, is a reasonable position to take if you're not interested in getting your books into bookstores, mainly focused on the big e-book stores such as Amazon, Apple and Kobo, none of which require you to have an ISBN number. I think if you have aspirations to having a more professional book, then at some point you may want to consider the investment that's required for buying ISBN numbers for your books. But they are an expense. I know that, on the other hand, the Alliance of Independent Authors does encourage you to buy ISBN numbers for your books. And there is a wider argument in terms of the publishing industry that if self-published books don't have ISBN numbers, then they in effect become unknown for the great mass of publishing statistics that are published each week. For example, there is this claim that ebook sales have been going down. As has been pointed out by services such as the Author Earnings survey that Hugh Harry and a mysterious guy called Data Guy run, which scans through the Amazon website looking at the sales figures. What they've seen is the actual number of ebook sales has been going up. The percentage with ISBN numbers has been going down. So what you have here is that the publishing industry thinks that ebooks are waning and paperbacks are coming back, while in reality this probably isn't the case, that actually ebooks are thriving, but more and more self-publishers aren't using ISBN numbers. So one argument you could make is that to make the figures more representative, then self-publishers should start using ISBN numbers. Sadly, the obvious solution of making ISBN numbers a lot cheaper isn't yet available, and there doesn't seem to be any plans to make them available for less money than they're currently being charged for, certainly in the UK and the US. There has been a process to make them easier to get hold of. Another issue with ISBN numbers is that they do take it does take a while to actually get a set allocated to you when you apply. Once you've got your first ISBN number in a set, you can just use them for books as and when you choose. But applying for that first one can take anywhere between a week to 10 days, meaning that if you're looking to get an ISBN number for your book but you haven't accounted for that time, this can often be quite off-putting. There is a financial and a time cost to getting ISBNs for your book. So those are the arguments for and against having ISBN numbers for your books. Personally, for paperback books, I think you probably do want to have an ISBN number simply because it gives you a vast amount more flexibility if you want to change suppliers from CreateSpace to, say, Ingram Spark. It also makes your book look more legitimate in a bookstore if you want it to ever be sold, if there's any possibility of somebody ordering it in a bookstore. But I can fully sympathise with those authors who choose not to buy ISBN numbers. Hopefully in future the situation will change and the providers of the ISBN numbers in the UK and the US will change, such that it becomes a lot easier to get them quickly and they become much cheaper to actually allocate to books, because after all it is just a number in a system. They do seem disrepresentative expensive for what you actually get, which is just a 13-digit code that you can put in your book. So that's all for this week's show. I'm currently doing NaNoWriMo, which is the National Novel Writing Month Challenge, where you have to write 50,000 words in a month. So far I'm up to date, but it is cutting back the amount of time I can spend on the podcast, so sorry if today's episode was rather shorter than normal. I shall talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please stop by iTunes and rate and leave a review. This helps make the show more visible. For free resources, show notes, and other helpful content, join the community at beginselfpublishing.com.